Hello and welcome to Thought-Provoking Tech. I'm Zach, and in this episode of Tech Tips, I'm going to be going over turning an old laptop or desktop into a Linux machine using the Debian distro so that you can install the Minecraft server on it and give that old hardware a new life. So, without further delay, let's get started. Alright, so the first thing you're going to need to do is install the latest Debian distro. So you can do that by going to their website, which I'll put a link in the description below, and click on complete installation image. I suggest going to the option to download CD, DVD images using HTTP or FTP. There's also a BitTorrent option if you have a BitTorrent client installed, but I don't, so I went with that. The DVD, it'll have it all in a single ISO, so I recommend going with the DVD option. It'll be about it says right there, 4.4 gigabytes. And more than likely, you'll probably need the AMD 64. That'll be if you have an Intel or AMD 64-bit CPU, which more than likely you probably will if it's an older gaming computer or an older laptop that you're getting ready to make into a Debian-based Minecraft server. So if we go ahead and click on that, you'll see a link down here to the ISO, which you can't see because of the overlay. You'll want to click on the dvd-1.iso and go ahead and download that one. The next thing you'll need to download, and that will take a little bit depending on your internet, is Rufus. I'll also put the link to that in the description below. And there's a portable operation. I recommend the portable one just because you can throw it on a flash drive and use it without actually having to install it. For most apps that have that option, I always download that option so I can just have some very useful apps on the go without having to install them on the local computer I'm working on. So I have already pre-downloaded both of those. What you're going to do is click on Rufus. And then it's going to ask for permission. What you're going to do is you're going to have a USB drive in here, which I already have done, but I'll go ahead and put it back in there for example's sake. Alright, so you can already see that I have it installed. It already has the name changed. But it doesn't really matter whether you do the MBR or the GPT. The GPT is a newer scheme. And you can go ahead and use it if you want, but it's not really mandatory. Then your name, you can name it whatever you want. But the main thing you want to do is make sure that is create a bootable disk drive using the ISO image, and then click on the little DVD drive icon, and you'll go to your downloads and click on the Debian icon that you have. You'll go ahead and hit scan. It'll name it whatever it's going to automatically name it. You can rename that after that is done, and go ahead and hit start. This will take quite some time to do, but it'll make a nice bootable drive. Then in your BIOS, you have to make sure that you set it so you can boot from USB, and then we will jump to that, installing the actual distro here in a second. I will have to do that on my camera because I won't be able to record off of my laptop with the capture card until it gets to the actual Debian desktop. So let's go ahead and get started on that part of it. All right, so we are now to the installation phase of this project. The boot media is finished with the Rufus bootloader and plugging it in. I went ahead and set my BIOS to load from the USB drive by default. And from there, you're just going to click install. And then it will proceed with the installation. Go ahead and choose your language, your location, and then your keyboard. Make sure you select the right one because people have different keyboard layouts, and that could definitely mess you up in the future. So it's going to go ahead and run through the loading stage of loading all the components that it needs to begin the installation. This will take some time, so I'll probably kind of pause here for a second, and you'll probably see the bars kind of jump forward as it jumps through different stages. All right, so I got an error message about some missing firmware. Uh, I did a little bit of research real quick and saw that some people would just recommend skipping it and said it might work or it might not work. It seems to happen with the Realtek, the soft or hardware a lot. It sometimes will require it, but there's not a way for it to determine if you actually need it or not. But I went ahead and found a package that it mentioned, so I'm going to go ahead and try it real quick and see if it will load it from my extra flash drive. If not, I'm going to go ahead with the skip and see if that works. Alright, so apparently the firmware that the Debian package I loaded from Debian itself didn't want to take, so I went ahead and just skipped, and it went through the network configuration fine. As far as I can tell, everything seems to be working fine. So now it wants you to set your host name for your computer. So that's kind of like the similar thing as your computer name that you set in Windows. So I'm just going to go ahead and name that Zach Laptop. That works. It's asking for the domain name. It says you can make something up. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the domain of Stark Industries. And now it's going to be asking for your root password. The root password is something you definitely don't want to forget, and will be used whenever you utilize the sudo command, which is used quite often in Linux, especially when you're first setting stuff up. So go ahead and set your root password, and then we'll continue. It will ask you to verify the password that you just entered, just so that you have the it ensures that you have the correct password, because if you don't have that, then you're essentially more than likely probably just be better off just going from scratch and reinstalling. Now you're going to go ahead and give the user a name. So I'm going to go ahead and give this user a name called Minecraft, and enter once more, and then I'm going to go ahead and make a password for this user. After you've entered your passwords, it is now going to ask you to set your clock. So you're going to enter your time zone that you live in, and then it'll continue with some installation steps. Here in a second, it's going to ask you how you want to partition it. I recommend just using the guided, using the entire disk. And then you're going to want to select your hard drive that you want to be your boot drive. So in this case, it's my 750 gigabyte hard drive in there, and the other two are my flash drives. I'm going to put all the files in one partition. It's recommended for new users, and I'm definitely a new user for Debian, so I'm going to go ahead and with that. So I'm going to go ahead and finish partitioning and write changes to the disk, and this part will take a little bit of time to install. So I'll let that run, and we will rejoin once those automatic steps are completed. Alright, so that step of the installation is finally done, and now it's at the stage that it's asking for a network mirror. The network mirror will let it download new packages, updates the packages, and essentially things that aren't missing that are missing from the internet, rather than have to use those two other large ISO files. So this is a recommended step, so I'm going to go ahead and get that set up, and just go ahead and use the default settings with no proxy. So it's going ahead and retrieving Alright, so the system automatically found some updates and went ahead and updated those. And now it's to the part where it's going to ask about collecting anonymous data. I'm just going to go ahead and enable that and continue with the installation. We're getting pretty close to the end now. Yep, here we go. Now it's at the point where it's going to ask what software we're going to want to install. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the desktop environment and the standard things enabled, and just go ahead and enter, and it's going to go ahead and finish installing the software. So this is going to take a while, so I will once again break and resume once that is done. Alright, so we are finally done installing the main application. So now it's wanting to install the bootloader. If you are trying to dual boot or something, it gives you a warning that this can make the computer temporarily unbootable. So if you are trying to make a dual boot system, that'll be something that you'll have to research in addition, and just keep that in mind. But since I am making this computer completely running on Linux, I'm just going to go ahead and hit yes to install the bootloader. Alright, so I'm going to select my hard drive. It's detecting three things there, and that's the two flash drives as well as the hard drive. I want to install the hard drive because I do plan on removing both flash drives once the installation is complete. And it looks like we are finally done completely installing. So we're going to go ahead and remove both flash drives at this point in time, so it can boot into the installation directly rather than trying to boot from the flash drive. Alright, so we have finally finished. It is now time to log in. It's asking for the password. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in and get this ball rolling. And we are in the Linux desktop finally. Alright, so now it's time to get going. Going to go ahead and double check updates, get Java installed, and go ahead and get Minecraft installed. I'm going to try to capture directly from the device now that I'm on the graphical desktop now. So I'm going to go ahead and get that set up and try getting that to go, so you get a little bit better picture quality rather than getting it from a camera setting right in front of the computer. Alright, so the capture card is now working, and we are now ready to start rolling inside of Debian. So the first thing you want to do is open your activities menu, and you'll want to launch terminal. You can show all applications. By default, it won't be on the right hand side. I've added it to my favorites. And then see. There we go. By hitting the button at the bottom, which you can't see because my overlay is over it, it'll bring up all the icons, and you'll be able to find the terminal. It'll be on the 4th page, and then you can right click and add it to your favorites. And then from then on forth, you can rearrange them however you want, remove them, and so on forth. The terminal is going to be something you're going to be using a lot. So if you're used to Raspberry Pi like I am, you'll be used to using sudo. Debian does not use sudo by default, so you'll use su instead of sudo. You want to type su root, and then you want to type that root password that you created. That'll be the first password that you created, not the second. Alright, so now you want to do apt-get, that's apt-get, and update. And this will run through all the programs that, or the packages that are installed, and check for updated versions of those packages and what versions those packages are currently at. This will actually not install the update, so just keep that in mind. So that is going to be the second command you're going to run, which is going to be apt-get upgrade. Now, if you just installed, you downloaded and installed it probably in the same day, there shouldn't probably be any upgrades, and you just saw I had 0. It is a good thing to double check. So the next thing we want to do is apt-get install open adk -7 -jre headless. Okay, so it's already installed and it's already in the newest version. So no upgrades were required. So we are now ready to install Minecraft. I will include the Minecraft installation server link in the description below. You want to go to that. Should be able to pull that up actually in Firefox. Um, just to show that and make this a little bit easier, maybe. Where Firefox go? Well, Firefox is not wanting to run. Okay. Okay, you just gotta give it a second, I guess. So that will be move my cursor. Don't have that. So it'll be minecraft.net/download/server. We'll lead you to that. Now, if you're running Windows and stuff, normally you can just download the jar and run it. But with Linux, the way I know how to do it is you can copy this link location. If you hover over it, you see AWS. It's on Amazon's AWS framework with their Minecraft.download options. So after that, you will go ahead and install Minecraft. And that'll be the latest version. So you should be able to type in. You want to make a directory first, so that's going to be pretty standard Linux command. Make a directory, mkdir, and I'm going to call this Minecraft. And now we are in. We have created the directory Minecraft, so we're going to change our directory to Minecraft. So now you see that we're in home Minecraft, which is the user, and then the folder Minecraft. So it's a little bit of a recursive or whatever you want to call it in the loop. The next thing you're going to do is get the command, and assuming that I can paste, I don't know if I can. Okay, so you're going to type wget, and you're going to use that link, which by copying it over there, you get the latest version of Minecraft server. It'll go ahead and download that. Has a nice little percentage bar. And after that, it will be able to finish. Now you could probably, I don't know if they allow you to browse that, but you can download older versions, I'm sure, if you want to play on an older version, if you have an older world. After that, to run Minecraft, you'll need to be in the directory, and by default, you can give it 1 gig of RAM. You can alternate this to give it more or less. .1.11.2.jar. And that should start it up. Now, when I set it up on the Raspberry Pi in the future, it said, yeah, you need to do the ULA, but you will have to run it first before you can do the ULA. So now you should be able to use Nano, which is the text editor, and type in that eula.txt and just change false to true. It just says that you've read this. It says true in caps. I'm not sure if it matters though. Then make sure you use the right command to save, which is should be exit. Then yeah, so Control X, then Y to save. And now, if you enter that same command you just entered earlier, which is Java xmx1g xms1g -jar. I don't remember how much RAM this old computer has. I just know that the battery doesn't work, and there's other things that don't work with it. So it's, as a laptop, it's no longer very functional, and my gaming computer, my main desktop, is a lot more powerful. So I don't really use it for its main purpose anymore, which made it a perfect candidate for this. But I will look up that in the future and up the RAM usage, because I know there's definitely way more than a gigabyte of RAM. I think there's 8 gigs on this machine, but you can just kind of base those numbers on what your machine has, and you want to leave some for Linux, of course. So this should go through the normal startup. If you're used to running on Windows, this will be a pretty similar endeavor with the startup text just generating this stuff. Although some of that's different, but I don't know if that's weird looking. But now we're getting to the preparing spawn area, which is definitely very similar. This does normally take a little while. It's been a while since I've ran a Minecraft server, so I don't remember exactly of how long this takes. But this is the first time it's preparing those areas, so it does take a little longer than normal. So now the Minecraft server should be up. Alright, so I've tested the server, connected, and so on and so forth, and verified that everything is working. So I'm just going to run through a couple things real quick in case you're having any issues. For one, the scanning games on the local network, that didn't work, so I had to add a server manually. To find your server address, you can go to click on the little Ethernet icon and type and click on the wired and hit the wired settings. That'll bring up a dialog that'll show you your local wireless or your local IP address. And you can go over here, type the Minecraft server. You can name it whatever you want: Joe server, Bob server, whoever server. Then type your IP address. It'll be something like this. More than likely, it'll be 192.168.something.something. So my example was .35 or 0.35. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that because I already have that made. So another little thing, I have the server actually shouldn't be running right now. Refresh that. Because I've shut it down. Okay, cool. So back in the server itself, I figured I'd run through a couple settings real quick. So one thing you want to do, if you've closed your icon or you stopped your server, you can go back to your CD and then Minecraft. Yeah, I mean Minecraft with a capital M. Alright, and then you can type in nano, which is the property or text editor, and type in server.properties. And that'll bring up the properties. So here you see the game mode. 0 is there's not a guide. 0. Let me pull that up real quick. 0 is survival, 1 is creative, 3 is adventure, and 2 is adventure, and 3 is spectator. And then essentially you have all your different options and so on and so forth. PvP, server IP, leave that blank unless you want to force this to go to a certain IP. It's best. I've never filled that out. If you want to make your Linux box a static IP, is your best bet. You can modify the view distance, and so on and so forth. You can modify the messages of the day. And if you go ahead and hit Control X and hit Y to save, that'll save the settings. So you might have to do su nano and go back to the root account. And go to your server.properties again. You just have to remember that you always have to have your permissions enabled. I'll go ahead and edit that real quick again, just so you can see that when the server goes live or the other side. Okay, and now when you launch your game again, you can go ahead and give it more RAM or whatever. So you want to do this in a multiple of 2. So 1024, 2048, so on and so forth. So that it's just an even amount of RAM. You should also be able to, if I remember correctly, be able to, I need to put M's behind those. Should also be able to put G's behind those. 2 for gigabyte, and you should just be able to hit 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so on and so forth. I don't think there's an actual limit of what you can actually put. So we're running 1.11.2.jar and no GUI. Oh, darn it. And that's why you never want to have typos. So my -jar was -gr, which causes that command to fail because it was not a valid command. Makes perfect sense. Oh geez, I'm just not having. I forgot my M on the initial heat. Third time's the charm, right? Alright, there it goes. Looks like it's going to start loading now. So, in Minecraft, we should be able to refresh here in a second once that finishes loading. Another command you want to use, let me move that up a little. I didn't realize it was cutting off. Now that it's done, you can type /op. If you never ran a Minecraft server again, that will make someone a operator, which allows them to change commands. They can, inside the game, change people games mode, change the time of day, and so on and so forth. And as people connect, it'll tell you their Minecraft username. That's mine. I've already connected, so it has my details. Now over in here, I can go back and refresh. And you'll see that the server's up. And you'll see that the message of the day has changed now. You can also edit the max number of users and so on and so forth, but I'd recommend testing all that first to kind of see how your computer performs. Alright, so you can see that I was in creative mode flying around. At first, when I first load up, due to the draw distance. It has a little bit of problems keeping up. But this is a use case for an older computer. You can also turn, if you just upgrade your gaming computer, you can certainly use your, 2 or 3 year old gaming computer that might be a little more powerful. This machine itself is a old laptop that actually doesn't have a battery, so it's running off of wall power only. So the CPU is having problems performing to its full potential due to the fact that it was limited by the power that it could run through the wall port. So one thing to keep in mind is just the hardware that you're running and what you're wanting to do with it, how many people you're wanting to push through it, and so on and so forth. Beyond that, everything seems to be working fine. If you want to allow people outside your network to join, you have to do port forwarding. If there's any interest in that, I could do a video on that. But there's plenty of guides on port forwarding in general. But if certainly people want a specific one to our setup that we walked through today, we can do one. Trying to get a nice high quality one. The biggest thing is so many routers are different, so the exact process that you walk through is going to be pretty varied on the port forwarding. So beyond that, you can go through the server.properties options and kind of configure that however you want. And that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video was informative and that you liked it. If you did, make sure you give the video a big like. That helps the video in general as well as the channel as a whole, and I greatly appreciate that feedback. In addition, make sure that you subscribe to my channel to stay tuned for more great videos in the future. And until next time, Zach out.